The winter evening wrapped the city in soft cold air as Christmas lights glowed across the streets. People hurried past stores with bags in their hands and smiles on their faces. Music floated from open doors and windows. Families gathered in warm places filled with laughter and food. Not every corner of the city shared that same brightness. At the edge of a quiet neighborhood stood a small community hall. Its paint was faded and the sign above the door was slightly crooked. Inside the hall, the decorations were simple and handmade. A small Christmas tree stood near the wall with paper stars and thin strings of light. Folded chairs and long tables filled the room. At one of those tables sat a man named Tom and his young son Ben. Tom was in his mid-30s with tired eyes and calm hands. His jacket showed signs of long use. Ben sat close to him, swinging his legs and smiling at everything around him. Ben's sweater was red and slightly too large for his small body. Tom had worked many jobs over the years. Some days he carried boxes. Some nights he cleaned offices after everyone went home. He never complained in front of his son. He believed that attitude mattered more than comfort. Ben did not notice the lack of expensive decorations. He only saw the lights and the tree, and his father beside him. On the table were pieces of colored paper with drawings of stars and snow shapes. Ben had made them earlier that day. He placed them carefully, as if they were treasures. "This is our Christmas party, Dad," Ben said with excitement. Tom smiled and nodded. "Yes, it is," he replied gently. Across the room people talked quietly. Some shared food while others helped children adjust their chairs. The room smelled of warm bread and sweet drinks. The hall was not loud, but it was full of life. Outside the hall, a dark car stopped near the curb. A tall man stepped out and adjusted his coat. His name was Mr. Gray. Many people in the city knew his name. He was the leader of a large company, and his face appeared often in business news. Mr. Gray had just left a grand event downtown. That place was full of glass walls and bright lights. People wore fine clothes and spoke of numbers and plans. Everyone smiled, but very few listened. Mr. Gray had left early without saying much. As he walked toward his car, his eyes noticed the small hall across the street. Light spilled from its windows in a soft, warm way. He heard a child laughing inside. Something made him stop walking. Mr. Gray stood still for a moment. He looked through the window. He saw families sitting close together. He saw hands passing food and small gifts. Then he saw Tom and Ben at the table. Ben leaned toward his father while speaking. Tom listened carefully and nodded. Their heads were close together. They laughed quietly at something only they understood. That small moment held more warmth than the large event Mr. Gray had just left. Mr. Gray felt an ache in his chest. He could not remember the last time he had shared a simple table with someone. His calendar was always full, but his evenings were empty. His house was large but silent. The holidays reminded him of that silence more than any other time. He walked closer to the door of the hall. His shoes echoed softly on the steps. He hesitated with his hand near the handle. He did not belong to places like this anymore. At least that was what he believed. Inside the hall, Tom noticed movement near the door. He looked up and saw the tall man standing there. Their eyes met briefly. Tom felt unsure but calm. He gave a small polite nod. Mr. Gray opened the door and stepped inside. Warm air surrounded him instantly. The sound of voices grew clearer. A few people glanced at him and then returned to their conversations. No one rushed toward him. Mr. Gray removed his gloves slowly. He felt strange standing there without anyone expecting him. He looked again at Tom and Ben. Ben noticed him and whispered something to his father. Tom listened and smiled. Ben waved without fear. Mr. Gray was surprised by that small gesture. He raised his hand slightly in return. The simple action made his chest feel lighter. He took a step forward. He did not know why he was moving toward their table. He only knew that turning back felt wrong. His shoes stopped beside an empty chair. Tom looked up again. Their eyes met once more. Mr. Gray took a slow breath. The words formed quietly in his mind. He leaned forward just enough to be heard. "Can I join you?" he asked softly. The question hung between them as the lights on the tree flickered gently. The question stayed in the air for a quiet moment as the lights on the small tree glowed softly. Tom looked at the man standing beside the table and then glanced at his son. Ben's eyes were wide with curiosity and not fear. He smiled and nodded before his father could speak. Tom pulled the empty chair back with a gentle movement. "There is space," Tom said calmly. Mr. Gray looked surprised but relieved. He slowly sat down as if unsure where to place his hands. Ben leaned forward and studied the man closely. "You look cold," Ben said honestly. Mr. Gray smiled for the first time that evening. "A little," he replied. Tom pushed a warm cup across the table without asking questions. Mr. Gray accepted it with both hands. The warmth spread through his fingers. He had forgotten how small kindnesses could feel so powerful. Around them the party continued quietly. People talked and laughed in soft voices. A woman adjusted a scarf around her child. Someone refilled cups at the far table. No one paid special attention to Mr. Gray. Ben picked up one of the paper stars from the table. "I made this today," he said proudly. He held it out toward Mr. Gray. "You can have it." Mr. Gray took the paper star carefully. It was uneven and colored with simple crayons. He nodded with respect. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Tom watched this exchange with quiet interest. He noticed how Mr. Gray held the paper star as if it mattered. Most people never looked twice at Ben's drawings. This man treated it differently. That small detail eased Tom's uncertainty. They began to talk in simple ways. Ben spoke about his school and his favorite storybooks. Tom talked about work and how winter made jobs harder to find. Mr. Gray listened more than he spoke. He asked gentle questions and waited for answers. For the first time in many years, Mr. Gray was not trying to impress anyone. No one asked him about his company or his success. No one expected him to lead or decide anything. He was just a man sitting at a table. The feeling was unfamiliar but comforting. Ben laughed at something his father said. The sound was clear and bright. It filled a space inside Mr. Gray that had been empty for a long time. He felt his shoulders relax. His breathing slowed. "Do you have a family?" Ben asked suddenly. The question was honest and innocent. Mr. Gray paused before answering. He looked at the table and then back at Ben. "I am alone most days," Mr. Gray said quietly. Ben frowned slightly. "That is sad," Ben said. Tom placed a hand gently on his son's shoulder. Mr. Gray did not feel offended. He felt understood. "Yes," he said. "It can be." The music in the hall shifted to a slower tune. Lights reflected softly on the walls. The night outside grew colder. Inside the hall warmth stayed steady. Tom offered some food from the plate. Mr. Gray hesitated and then accepted. It was simple and homemade. He realized he could not remember the last time he ate food made with care. As time passed, the room grew quieter. Some families began to leave. Coats were pulled on and goodbyes were shared. The small tree remained glowing near the wall. Tom and Ben stayed seated. Mr. Gray checked his watch without urgency. For once he was not rushing to the next thing. He placed the paper star into his coat pocket carefully. He did not want it to bend. That small star felt important. Ben yawned and leaned against his father. Tom smiled softly and brushed his hair back. Mr. Gray watched this moment closely. He felt a deep respect for what he saw. This was something no amount of money could create. "I should go," Mr. Gray said gently. Tom nodded. "It was good to meet you," Tom replied. Mr. Gray stood slowly. He hesitated before turning away. "I do not usually ask this," he said. "But may we meet again sometime?" Tom looked surprised. He studied Mr. Gray's face and saw honesty there. "Yes," Tom said simply. "That would be fine." Mr. Gray smiled again. It was not a practiced smile. It was real and quiet. He waved to Ben. "Good night," Ben said happily. "Good night," Mr. Gray replied. As Mr. Gray stepped outside, the cold air touched his face. He did not mind it. His chest felt warmer than it had all evening. He walked toward his car slowly. The noise of the city felt distant. Inside the hall, Tom watched through the window. He felt something had shifted that night. Ben rested his head against his arm. The party lights reflected in the glass. The night continued quietly. Neither of them knew that this small moment would change their lives. The days after the small Christmas party passed quietly for Tom and Ben. Winter mornings arrived slowly with pale light through their window. Tom returned to his usual routine of early work and late evenings. Ben went to school and talked about the party to anyone who would listen. Ben kept the memory close to his heart. He spoke often about the tall man who shared their table. He remembered the careful way the man held the paper star. To Ben it felt important that someone listened so closely. Tom thought about that night during his long walks home. He wondered why the meeting stayed in his mind. Many people had passed through their lives. Few stayed longer than a moment. This one felt different. Mr. Gray also carried the memory with him. The paper star stayed in his coat pocket for days. Each time his hand brushed against it, he paused. He felt a quiet reminder of warmth and simplicity. It grounded him during busy hours. Back in his office, Mr. Gray faced meetings and decisions. Screens glowed with numbers and charts. People spoke quickly and expected answers. He responded calmly, but something inside him had shifted. The noise felt heavier than before. During one meeting, his eyes drifted to the window. Snow fell gently between tall buildings. He remembered the soft lights in the small hall. He remembered Ben's open smile. The contrast stayed with him. That afternoon, Mr. Gray asked his assistant to clear his schedule for one lunch. No explanation was given. He wrote a short note by hand. The words were simple and direct. He placed it in an envelope without any mark. When Tom opened the envelope days later, he felt surprised. He read the invitation slowly. It asked only for time and conversation. There were no promises or offers. Tom appreciated that honesty. Ben was excited when he heard the news. He asked if he could bring more paper stars. Tom smiled and nodded. He felt cautious but open. Life had taught him to be careful but not closed. The lunch took place in a quiet cafe away from crowds. The place smelled of fresh bread and warm drinks. Wooden tables filled the room. Light from large windows softened the space. It felt welcoming. Mr. Gray arrived early and chose a corner table. He removed his coat and placed the paper star beside his cup. He felt calm waiting there. This feeling was new to him. Waiting no longer felt like wasted time. When Tom and Ben arrived, Mr. Gray stood up immediately. Ben waved with excitement. Tom offered a polite greeting. They sat together easily. The moment felt natural. They spoke about simple things again. Ben shared stories from school. Tom talked about work and winter challenges. Mr. Gray listened and learned. He valued these stories more than reports. At one point, Mr. Gray asked about Tom's work experience. He listened carefully without interrupting. Tom spoke honestly without shame. He explained his skills and struggles. The conversation stayed respectful. Mr. Gray did not make grand statements. He did not promise quick solutions. He only said he would look for possibilities. Tom appreciated that restraint. Trust grew slowly. Weeks passed and winter deepened. Snow gathered along streets and rooftops. Tom received a call one morning. It was about steady work at a small company. The position matched his skills. Tom felt grateful but cautious. He accepted the job with humility. He did not ask how the opportunity came. He suspected but did not assume. What mattered was the chance to provide stability. Ben noticed changes at home. His father seemed less tired. Mornings felt lighter. Meals felt more relaxed. The house felt warmer even on cold nights. Mr. Gray also noticed changes in himself. He started leaving the office earlier. He took walks without purpose. He spent evenings reading instead of checking messages. The paper star now rested on his desk. The three continued to meet from time to time. Sometimes for lunch. Sometimes for short walks. There was no pressure. The connection grew naturally. Mr. Gray learned the value of presence. Tom learned that help could arrive without pride attached. Ben learned that kindness could come from unexpected places. Each gained something different. Each gave something meaningful. As Christmas approached again, the city prepared for celebration. Lights returned to windows. Music filled streets once more. Stores grew busy. The air carried familiar excitement. Mr. Gray made a decision quietly. He declined invitations to large events. He chose something smaller. Something honest. Something real. Tom and Ben received a simple message. It invited them to the same small community hall. No details were added. Only a time and place. They understood immediately. That night the hall looked much the same. The tree stood by the wall. Paper stars decorated the space. Ben added new ones proudly. The lights glowed softly. Mr. Gray arrived without a dark coat this time. He carried a small bag of food. He smiled easily as he entered. He felt at home. The room welcomed him. They sat together at the familiar table. No one spoke of titles or success. They shared food and stories. Laughter returned quietly. The night moved gently forward. The paper star rested in the center of the table. It reminded them of how it all began. A simple moment. A quiet choice. A shared table. The second Christmas night felt calmer than the year before. Snow rested quietly along the streets and rooftops. The city lights reflected softly on the white ground. People moved slower as if respecting the silence of winter. The small community hall stood steady at the corner of the street. Inside the hall the warmth was gentle and welcoming. The same small tree stood near the wall. Paper stars now covered its branches. Some were old and some were new. Each carried a story of time and care. Tom entered the hall holding Ben's hand. Ben looked around with excitement. He remembered this place clearly. The memories felt warm and safe. Tom felt grateful for how much had changed. Tom's life had grown more stable over the year. His work provided regular hours and fair pay. He no longer worried each night about the next day. He felt pride without pressure. Most of all, he felt present for his son. Ben had grown taller and more confident. He spoke easily with others. He helped arrange chairs and decorations. He felt useful and valued. His smile filled the room. Mr. Gray arrived quietly a few minutes later. He wore a simple coat and no expensive accessories. He carried a small box of paper stars. His face showed ease rather than tension. The hall no longer felt unfamiliar to him. When Mr. Gray saw Tom and Ben, he smiled openly. Ben waved and ran toward him. Mr. Gray bent slightly to greet him. They spoke with ease and comfort. Their connection felt natural. They sat together at the same table. The table held simple food and warm drinks. The paper stars rested between them. The lights reflected gently off the decorations. The room felt complete. Conversation flowed without effort. They spoke of school and work and winter days. There was laughter and quiet pauses. No one rushed the moment. Time felt generous. Other families filled the hall slowly. Children played near the tree. Adults shared stories and smiles. The atmosphere was calm and sincere. The hall felt alive in a gentle way. Mr. Gray watched the room with thoughtful eyes. He felt a deep understanding settle within him. He realized that this was the kind of gathering he missed all those years. Not large events or loud rooms, but simple moments shared honestly. Tom noticed the change in Mr. Gray. He saw a man who no longer carried constant weight. He saw someone learning balance. Their friendship felt equal and respectful. That mattered deeply to Tom. Ben placed a new paper star on the tree. He stepped back to admire his work. He felt proud and happy. The star was not perfect, but it was full of meaning. Later in the evening, music played softly. People sat closer together. The lights dimmed slightly. The winter night pressed gently against the windows. Inside the hall, warmth held strong. Mr. Gray took a moment to speak quietly to Tom. "I am glad we met," he said sincerely. Tom nodded with appreciation. "So am I," he replied. No further words were needed. Ben leaned against his father as the evening went on. His eyes grew heavy. Tom held him close. Mr. Gray watched with a soft expression. He felt a quiet peace settle in his chest. As the night came to an end, people prepared to leave. Coats were gathered and goodbyes were exchanged. The tree lights continued to glow. The paper stars remained steady. The hall slowly emptied. Tom helped Ben put on his coat. Mr. Gray waited patiently. They stepped outside together. Cold air greeted them gently. Snow fell lightly from the sky. They stood for a moment without speaking. The street was quiet. The night felt calm and complete. Mr. Gray looked at the small hall one last time. He felt grateful. Ben looked up and smiled. "This was the best Christmas," he said. Tom smiled back. "Yes, it was," he replied softly. Mr. Gray nodded in agreement. He placed his hands in his coat pockets. The paper star rested there as always. It remained his reminder. A reminder of what truly mattered. They walked in different directions but with shared understanding. The bond between them did not require constant presence. It was built on respect and kindness. It would last quietly over time. That was enough. Inside the hall, the lights slowly dimmed. The tree stood quietly with its paper stars. The room held the echoes of laughter and warmth. It waited patiently for another year. Another story. And somewhere in the city, 3 lives continued forward. Changed not by wealth or status, but by a simple question. Asked with honesty. "Can I join you?"